How do you raise capital when you have zero contacts? You don't know any VCs, you're not connected as a person or family or anything. So this is going to be interesting.
Murvah, do you want to start?
Murvah Iqbal.
Murvah Iqbal, who's the co-founder and CEO of Hived.
Hive.
In this episode, I'm speaking to entrepreneur Murvah Iqbal.
Serving at the moment around 12 million homes. Everyone's fed up of receiving bad delivery service. On my bike, when I was delivering parcels myself, I had to think, we're going to build $1 billion company here. We did that 7 days a week for about 6 to 9 months.
Tell me about fundraising. Tell me about the process of securing capital.
Absolutely horrific. We didn't have the luxury of, financially backing from family or friends. We fostered a lot of young talent at Hive because we've had to be scrappy, because we didn't have the luxury of lots of capital.
How are you going out there and winning big corporations?
So firstly, it always goes back to that typically sells itself. I think the other thing that gives me drive is just because, let's be honest, I don't really see many brown female founders.
The Alfie Whattam podcast.
Murvah, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. So you're building Hived,
Correct.
Which is disrupting the delivery industry with electronic vehicles and promoting sustainability and that sort of thing. Tell me a little bit about the journey of Hived, and I guess more specifically, what advice you'd give to other startup founders and entrepreneurs and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so firstly, at Hived, we are disrupting parcel delivery. We're sustainable by default, but the actual USP is just better quality and service. I think everyone's fed up of receiving bad delivery service. So yes, we're entirely electric, but our main USP is just better service at scale. Founded it in late 2020, so early 21, from my apartment with my co-founder. And we just saw the opportunity and thought, hey, parcel delivery needs to be disrupted, because we worked in an adjacent industry where we got exposure to how inefficient the market was, and thought, let's do it. So we got on our bikes. Matthias, my co-founder, built the first version of the back end, the code, the first tracking pages, everything. And I got the first customers, and we were both on our bikes and got going. And so all the advice I always give to entrepreneurs is just get going, just start. Don't build the perfect solution, the perfect product, so many features. Get customers, get a paying customer and get going. I think that's also super important, is getting paying customers, because there's something about doing free and building the perfect features. Just literally get going. And we didn't have a massive network at that point, or hundreds of thousands of drivers like we have today. But what we did have was, we saw a problem, we saw an opportunity, and we knew customers were willing to pay for it. And at that, obviously, it wasn't scalable. Me on my bike doing deliveries.
So you were actually on a bike? I thought that was like an analogy or a metaphor, but you're actually going out there.
For 6 months. For 6 months, me and my co-founder, we were on our bikes.
I love that, yeah.
Probably even longer, actually. From 6 in the morning until 3 p.m. doing deliveries.
Wow.
In the afternoon, after that, building, more on the back end, me reaching out to more customers, building our pitch deck, going to raise funds. Yeah. We did that 7 days a week for about 6 to 9 months.
Wow.
It was brutal, but when I look back now, how big Hived is today, those days were so fun. They were so painful, but so fun. And it taught me a lot when I'm actually speaking to customers and I'm actually doing deliveries. It's like, oh, this is broken, we should do it like this, we should do it like this. And you can just quickly iterate constantly once you're on the field doing it. And I think, just more exposure to the problem. And I think that's just the way we had to be lean, we had to be efficient. We didn't have any money at that point. Everything was on credit cards. And we just had to, find product market fit. And that was super important for us.
Yeah. I started my company in an apartment too, right? And I can tell you firsthand, those first few months are so hard and it's a struggle and it's a pain. And I think a lot of people that want to do a startup, they see some glossy story about somebody creating a unicorn and overnight they've raised loads of money. It's not the reality, is it? Just talk to us a little bit about the realities of the challenges that come with the early days.
Oh, absolutely horrific, because you have to be naive to do it, I think. And that's what me and my co-founder were, naive. On our bikes, delivering parcels, and in the back of my mind, I still have this motivation and determination that we're going to be $1 billion company. And you're on your bike delivering like 10 parcels across London, and you have to have that motivation and determination. And it's really hard because you have to sacrifice everything. You have to sacrifice social life, you have to sacrifice your, it's unfortunately it was the way it was for us, because we didn't have, a lot of money, we didn't raise it at that point. We didn't have the luxury of, financially backing from family or friends or anything like that. So it was a struggle, but it was really highly rewarding at the same time. I mean, yeah, like I said, I look back and think, those days were the best, but it wasn't easy at all. Waking up, like I said, 6 a.m. in the morning to 3 p.m. delivering, then 3 p.m. till 12 a.m. at night on my laptop crunching. And yeah, I don't, want to promote hustle culture or anything, but I think there is a little bit of a thing of, I want to work in a startup, or I want to be a startup founder. It looks so glamorous. It's really not. And I think that's what I'm trying to say. I'm not promoting hustle culture, but I'm not also trying to say it's super easy.
It's required if you want to build something. And I know it's not sexy to talk about like an anti-4-day work week, but it depends on what you want to do, right?
Yeah.
But in your situation, it's I don't know how you can build something successful without putting in the work.
No, and I think it depends on the individual founder and how quickly you want to grow and how quickly you want to take the company. I think me and Matthias had, always had this ambition that it's kind of go big for us, right? We want to build one of the fastest growing companies in Europe, and we're on track to do that. And that does take hard work. We could have also been the type of founders to say, actually, let's grow slowly and profitable, and that's also great to do, and take a different approach to it. But for us, it was always fast growth, high growth, become one of the fastest growing companies and take on this massive industry. I mean, we want to be the largest parcel delivery network in the UK within 5 years from when we started. We're on track to do that, but 5 years is not a long time. So we knew we had to put the hard work in to get to where we are today, but also we have to put a lot more hard work to get to where we need to go.
Yeah. Parcel deliveries is a painful market for customers a lot of the time. Like I've used Yodel and all the other ones, right? It's a pretty shit experience most of the time. I heard you talk on a podcast about trying to make the experience 10 times better.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you? What does great customer service and satisfaction look like?
So I think I'm a recipient of parcel delivery, and I've grown up with parcel delivery era. My parents probably not, but me, shopping online, everything. And also we've grown up in this digital native age where I can, order food really easily in a really slick experience, order a taxi if I need one, a really slick experience, do everything really digitally native. And I don't think that was, it's still not in parcel delivery just yet. You don't have control of where your parcel is as a recipient. And we want to give the feeling to the recipient receiving the parcel that you have full total control of where your parcel is, when it's going to be delivered, how it's going to be delivered, and every step of that journey. For me, it looks like clear communication and also being responsible about how we do it, how we treat our workers, how, what vehicles we're using, the whole ecosystem around it, because it's more than just delivering a parcel. We're serving at the moment around 12 million homes right in our delivery area.
Wow.
And we're touching a lot of homes every single day. We have a responsibility to do that well as well. So for a recipient point of view, I'm a recipient. I'm sort of building the product for myself. When I shop online, what do I want to see, right? I want to know exactly when my parcel's coming. I don't want to not trust this random tracking that I get, or this dodgy time slot. Is that actually true? I want to be able to trust it. And we're now the highest rated parcel delivery carrier in the UK. And I think that's something that we want to continue to build on, and that comes first. And I think we've managed to instill that culturally. I think me and Matthias being on our bikes for 6 to 9 months, being so, particular about delivery service and, breeding that into the whole team. You can speak to anyone in the team and the consumer always comes first, no matter what. And I think it comes with technology, what we've been able to bake in, but also culture as well.
There's 2 things there which resonate with me. About the customer being first. That's very much kind of Jeff Bezos's philosophy and how he's built Amazon. Obviously, that's a great comparison. And you mentioned around you kind of doing the grunt work yourself for the first couple of months, which reminds me of Airbnb, how when they created the company, they were letting strangers sleep on their sofa, and they were like living in other people's homes and that sort of thing. I think it's really hard to properly understand your avatar, your ideal customer, without actually sitting in their shoes and experiencing the pains. And because a business is just a solution to a problem at the end of the day. And if you can find out what that problem is and solve it better than anybody else, then awesome, you can make a lot of money. And I've had terrible experiences with delivery companies where I've had like a 5-hour window, and then it arrives and it's outside in the rain, not in the building or anything, and all kinds of crazy stuff, right? So in order for you to scale this business and go from you on a bike to you running an operation, you've raised 10 million
just
circa?
Over that.
Okay, just over 10 million. Tell me about fundraising. Tell me about the process of securing capital. How did you find going out to investors? How did you find the rejection and the inevitable process that comes with that, right? Tell me about that journey.
Yeah, so firstly, I think because me and Matthias, the backgrounds that we personally come from, both from family background, business backgrounds, we've always had this within us to build a sustainable business internally as well. And so we never wanted to raise, hundreds of millions of capital right from the go, because we knew that we had to, from the start, get to good unit economics, because, well, let's face it, operational business, delivery businesses, venture capitalists want to understand that, that journey. And I think in the past few years we've seen that, especially. And so for us, it was always about raising the capital we needed, but not being too luxury with the capital, and making sure that the fire was under us still, to make sure that we were really hot on the margins and the business and stuff like that. So from early on, that was always our ethos, and it always will remain for the future of Hived. And yeah, raising capital, I think for a first-time founder, especially both of us, me and Matthias, and was my job to go out and raise capital. So, okay, how do you raise capital when you have zero contacts in the industry, you don't know any VCs, you're not connected as a person or family or anything? So, this is going to be interesting. Luckily, I found a venture capitalist called Pale Blue Dot.
Yep, I've heard of them. Very climate tech.
Yeah, climate tech from Sweden.
Yeah.
And they had on their website, book diversity office hours. And I was like, I've not got a pitch deck yet properly, but I was figuring out I need to go and raise soon, let's just do it. Luckily got in touch with, managed to meet a partner called Hampus Jakobsen, who really liked the space. It was sort of love at first sight between me, Matthias and him, and that happened quite quickly. And so we were quite, I guess, lucky and fortunate in our first round that it happened quite quickly, because we met one of the partner really early on who really backed this space and backed us. So that was quite good. And then we filled a round with Eco Ventures from London, from John Coker, who backed us, who was a first investor in Gusto when he was at MMC. And so he really got operational business that had been dying out to see a company disrupt the space. And for me and Matthias, it was really important that we found venture capitalists and the individual people at these funds that really understood what we were trying to do. So that would back us the entire way, even when times get tough. We really wanted to find investors who understood how this was going to play out, why this was important. And so we were really lucky there. And then we got Maersk Growth as well. Maersk Growth.
It's the investment arm of
Maersk, the big shipping company. Yeah. And that was also super important for us, because Maersk also really get the space.
Yeah,
Maersk,
massive.
Huge, and they have a really clear thesis on what this believes. And for us, we want investors like that really get and back the space. And then in early this year, we've had Planet A join as well, and all our existing investors double down on us. And again, Nick from Planet A, super committed to what we were building, focused on mobility and climate, really backed me and Matthias as people. So I think there's a theme across all of that, is that we really always wanted to work with partners and funds that really backed what we were doing, us as individual people, but also the thesis of what we were trying to build. And then we also had investment from Future Back Ventures, which is the Bain & Co. arm of venture capital, with a second investment. And again, Bain & Co. don't, they do their due diligence, they have a clear thesis, they know what they want to invest in. And so that's been a theme of all our investors. It's like, do they get the space? Do we like them as people? We've been fortunate enough to have those people, to be able to select those people along the way. So fundraising, it's difficult, it's tough, and yes, you get no's along the way, but at the end of the day, if you're building a good business, if you have good metrics, there is capital out there. And I think it's just you as a founder and your team, you have to be laser focused on what is going to result in good business outcomes, whether that's growth, a good unit economics, and what's that path is looking like, and how much, what have we done since the last round. I think there is capital out there. I think the standards to raise capital have gone higher, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think it's just you have to be laser focused on the founder of what you need to achieve from the next milestones.
Hey, this podcast is brought to you by WeLoveAlpha.com. If you're looking to grow and hire and scale your software engineering team in the UK, then go to WeLoveAlpha.com to hire the best software developers on the market. Everything across Java to C# to PHP to Python to React and Angular and mobile and more. Go to WeLoveAlpha.com to hire the best software engineers in the UK now.
I think one thing that you mentioned that was interesting there, Murvah, is around people over-raising. Like you raised, an amount of money, but you didn't want to go crazy. And I've got a friend who, I won't say his name, but he raised 40 million for a business, and it doesn't exist anymore. Let's just say. And I said to him, look, what's the mistake? What went wrong? Because Alfie, we should have raised 5 million. And because we set impossible targets to hit, and people just got caught up in the hype and the frenzy. Would you share that perspective? That
100%. I think so. We not to say in the future we won't raise those types of figures when we need it, but we've always extremely laser focused, and I think that's because we wanted to make sure we built an efficient organization, that every single person that we employed was thinking creatively, thinking lean and efficient, how to build the right solutions, things like that, being laser focused as an organization. And I think I've seen a lot of, I spoke to a lot of founders in a similar position, and I took a lot of advice off them. I take a lot of inspiration from the company Bolt, Marcus Villard.
The bikes.
The huge micromobility company that's taken on Uber, and I think in their first 5 years they struggled to raise even £1 million pounds, right? Yeah. And now they're one of the biggest companies in Europe, and I think for an operational business as well that we're involved in, I think it's extremely important to have a really good understanding of finances and being really efficient, because that allows you to build really good, robust systems that actually move the needle, and you're prioritizing and have that laser focus. I think that's what capital efficiency and sort of not having too much makes you have as an organization. And I know the team have built some amazing things because they've had to think harder because we've had less money along the way. So I'm really proud of what the team's achieved with that mindset. And as we grow as a company, we'll always retain that mindset.
So you mentioned the team there a few times. What's important to you when building a team? When you get that money, I mean, you can only spend it on so many things, and people is the biggest cost most of the time. What's important to you when hiring, when recruiting, when building culture, when building a world-class team? Getting them all on the same page, the same mission, the same vision. What's your perspective?
So first default, they have to be excited by the mission and the vision that we're building. Yeah. That's like number one. And secondly is, are they a good person? Will I enjoy working with them? Will the team enjoy working with them? And then it's talent and like how good they are at their job. Sure. And I think it's literally in that order, because you can't work for Hive if you're not actually excited by the mission. Right? You have to like the mission. And then it's, are you a good person? Like, are you gonna care for your team, for the environment when you're making business decisions, everything? Are you a good person? And then thirdly, do you have the kind of skill set that we need for that role? I think the way that we've done talent at Hive is really different, and I'm really proud of that. Our first 2 full-time employees were the first 2 riders at Hive that were on the bikes with me and Matthias during that period. And they were, one of them was just a fresh graduate who, just had passion for bikes or something like that. And then the other one was, working part-time for Hive to get some shifts on the side. And both of them have so much passion for Hive because they've seen it, from my living room picking up parcels and now leading teams. And they've grown with the company, amazing. They've not had X whatever background or scaled massive companies, whatever, but what they do have is grit and resilience. And they care about what we're doing, and they're good people. And those 2 are some of the best, seeing their growth journey has been amazing. And we've fostered a lot of young talent at Hive because we've had to be scrappy, because we didn't have luxury of lots of capital. And we found talent that really cared about what we were doing, and really intelligent and good people. And now we've also managed to top that up with amazing experience. We just hired a COO who was ex-CEO of HelloFresh from Series C to IPO, and comes with a wealth of experience. Our head of ops, it was scaled Moonpig, and previously was at HelloFresh and Amazon. So you couple that sort of young, grit, resilient talent with now sort of experienced leaders, and it's great. We've just launched a grad scheme in the past few months. We've hired 5 grads who will go on then, in a year's time to figure out a place in Hive where they go. So I think we'll always continue to foster young talent, but couple that in with some great experience. And I think that's the blend that we want to retain at Hive, even as we scale. Yeah.
Aside from the more strategic exec senior hires, it sounds like you're of the philosophy to hire for attitude and then kind of train for skill.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
A cliche, but it's so true. And it's true, in my opinion, because as somebody that runs a recruiting company, I see the opposite happen so many times, where somebody will have all the right technical skills, but they're a dick, and like why would you want to work with them?
Exactly.
Right? And when they go, we'd love to hire this person, Alfie, I'm like, are you sure? Like really? Because in 6 months, I don't know if you'll be feeling the same way. But is that your philosophy? Getting 100%. Grit, getting persistence, getting that character? Because those things, they can't be taught, can they?
They can't be taught. I think grit, resilience for me is like really important, but also just being a good person, like I said. That is fundamentally important, because you make it impossible then to work as a team, cohesiveness. Sure. We have such a great team at Hive, and that's the one thing that I'm like the most proud of. When people ask me what you're most proud about so far, is like the team that we've built and seeing them interact with each other. And I think if you walk into our office, you can feel that environment. And it's really funny. Every time someone new joins, 2 months later, they're like, you weren't lying in the interview when you said everyone's here, it's amazing. And I'm just excited to how that scales. But for me, it's always about attitude first. You can't teach attitude, but you can teach skill. And if people have the right attitude, they'll learn the skill. So that's why attitude always comes first.
What about leadership? Because after you've hired a great team, you need to be the founder, be the chief exec, guide them, set the direction, inspire them, coach them, get them going. What's a good leader look like to you?
Still trying to figure that out because it's my first leadership role. I just turned 28. I started Hive at when I was 25.
Me too. I'm 27, so
I've not had, and I'm very open about that. But throughout my life, I've had different various leadership roles. I was captain of Man City Ladies Football Club, and just generally, being the only girl out of had two brothers at home and stuff like that. You kind of you have to become a bit of a leader to fight for yourself.
To survive.
But I take a lot of inspiration from a lot of other leaders. And I think that's, whether that's from different industries as well, it might not just be from entrepreneurship. Like, football, I think Sir Alex Ferguson was an incredible leader. Whether you look at the politics or, Obama and different people, and read and get inspired by lots of different types of leadership. I don't think, for me, I've not figured out what my leadership style is just yet. I'm carving that as I get along. And also I learn from my team quite a lot. I take inspiration from a lot of my team members. They teach me every day, I should have done that differently or that. And I think as long as you're aware that you have to learn, you have to change, and you have to adapt according to the stage and size of the company, I think that's really important. Me and my leadership, what it was 2 years ago to what it is now, to what it is in 2 years, has to evolve and has to change. And I think if you're conscious about that and being self-reflective enough and have the people around you that are going to give you that feedback, then I think you just have to continuously evolve as a leader.
When you started and you're delivering packages on a bike, it's quite a journey to now having clients like ASOS and Candy Kittens.
And Sky.
Yeah. Candy Kittens film here, don't they? Yeah. So it's small ecosystem, right? But to have big brands and names like that, what is the sales strategy? How are you going out there and winning big corporations?
So firstly, it always goes back to just day to day doing a great job of our service. That typically sells itself. And I think the big enterprise customers, like some of them that you named, like the Inditex group that owns Zara, etc., or ASOS, etc., they know that their recipients are demanding a better experience. If we can showcase that and prove that, then it's quite an easy sell. And then on top of that, there's a sustainability angle. A lot of these big enterprises have pressures to decarbonize, and one of the big areas is logistics and supply chain. And we're the only company in the UK that does the entire collection from the warehouse electric to the last mile to the end consumer's door electric. So that is a huge sell in itself, but also just delivering one huge customer that we're launching with early next year. The reason they got in touch and really wanted to launch with Hived is because they received privately a Hive delivery. And we're like, wow,
great service.
This is amazing. We need to roll this out for our company. And that's happened quite a few times. And so that's important. And then also the brand and reputation that we've managed to create. I think, lots of parcel delivery companies don't look, unfortunately, sorry if anyone's listening from those parcel delivery companies, but as cool and funky as Hived. The way our vans look, the way our tracking pages, the way our website, we're a consumer brand. We're building a consumer brand at the same time. And brands like Candy Kittens want to be associated with that. We did a collaboration with Candy Kittens where we jointly wrapped a vehicle. So we're just bringing a fresh approach to this market, and that's what retailers want. Retailers are quite innovative, and the retailers that will stay here in the next 20 years will be the ones that continuously innovate and change and look at, what their delivery options are and things like that. And we're thankful to work with all of those, and we've got a lot more lined up, that exciting brands too.
There was a delivery company which, I can't remember the previous name, but it rebranded as Every?
Yeah, Hermes.
Hermes, okay, so Hermes became Every. I had terrible experiences with Hermes. Sorry, Hermes, and we're probably cutting my chances of doing business with them, but oh well. Hive to call her. But they rebranded as Every to be more of a quirky name brand, but the service didn't change really, in my opinion, because I still had the missed deliveries. So it's not just about the brand, is it? It's about the fundamentals and
it's about operations, the technology that underpins it. And I think DPDs and Everys, they've been here for a long time. They've done an incredible job, right? E-commerce in the UK is one of the most mature markets. So e-commerce compared to countries in, like France or other DPDs and everything have been delivering for quite a long time, and they've done a great job. Let's be honest, right? They, they still do a great job. They serve, the entire of the UK population.
Well, they're massive. They have to be doing something right.
So there's room for us as well. And so. I think for us though, it's a combination of the brand, the forward-looking, the sustainability angle, the technology and operations that underpins everything at scale, and having the right culture in our team to maintain that as we rapidly scale and grow.
Hey, really quick video just to give you a free subscription to Koda Magazine. Koda is the #1 publication for all the latest tech news, expert insights and exclusive industry interviews. With Koda, you get the inside scoop on what's happening with Elon Musk, with Bill Gates, with Jeff Bezos, with Mark Zuckerberg, and so much more. So if you work in the technology industry, then I'd highly recommend that you give Koda a read today. Just scan the QR code on the screen for free access now, or go to welovealpha.com/magazine to get your free subscription today. I know that you're not from a technical background, but the whole electric vehicle space is something that I'm super interested in. And the technology can be repurposed for not just cars, but bikes and planes and helicopters and drones and who knows what else. Do you ever envision a day where Hived is not limited to the road and perhaps they're in other areas?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got ambition to be in Europe and across the world, right?
Sure.
The reason why we started in the UK now is because of the size of the country. We can, cover it electrically.
Yeah.
And in a few years' time, I'm hoping there's some, electric airplanes and things like that we can deploy. I mean, we're agnostic to our approach in the future. I don't have a clear, this is what we're going to use forever. We're always open to innovation and working with our partners to innovate in those things, whether it would be, electric planes or trains or drones.
Amazon have just done they're rolling it out again, so they're giving it another go. Yeah.
So there's, it's exciting. I think there's a lot of, exciting developments in the whole mobility space. Yeah. But for us, it just has to be practical for our use case.
Sure.
And right now, drones and, delivering in the middle of London is quite problematic. But, for rural areas, that makes a lot of sense potentially. So we're agnostic to our approach there, but there is a lot of exciting innovation happening.
Cool. You were recognised for, building the company from Forbes 30 under 30. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Tell us about that experience. Like, is there like an application, or did they just get in touch? Or?
So I didn't actually apply for it. I think there is an application that you can do.
People recommend you or something?
Yeah, so I think me and my co-founder got nominated by a few people, and they just reached out to us saying, hey, you've been nominated for this. Can you just can you just confirm this factual information?
Sure.
Agreed. And then you don't actually find out until the morning it's released.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you don't actually...
So you wake up and there's a picture of you
exactly.
on Forbes.
So they ask you to submit a photo and factually, check all of this, but at that point they don't confirm if you've made it or not.
Cool.
And that was an exciting moment, but I think... for like, I guess my family and stuff. My mum and dad, unfortunately, unfortunately they don't spend or hear much time for me, but for them that's like a proud, a proud moment for them to look back at. And similarly, I guess for me and Matthias, I think one thing that we've done bad, and I think, I'm trying to change, is actually celebrate small successes along the way. Yeah. And I think that was quite nice for a lot of people and friends and family who didn't really know what I was doing to reach out to me like, oh, this is really cool.
Everyone's heard of Forbes. Then.
But, so that it was quite a nice checkpoint for me and Matthias to reflect and look back on, I guess.
Yeah. What about younger people that, I'm not saying that people should aspire to have a goal of being on that list. The goal should be to build something cool, and then you get recognised as a result of that. But for people that want to build something cool and then get that recognition, we talked earlier in the episode about tips for entrepreneurs, but I guess more specifically for, I suppose, people, women in tech or, BAME individuals, what would you say for that group of people?
I'd say just back yourself and do it. I think that's one thing that I've managed to take and grow is in confidence. I think if I look at myself 5 years ago, the confidence levels I had then compared to now, and when I meet founders of, especially female founders, they're just, from my perspective, I think, I'm maybe biased, but I think they're smarter and I think they're great. And, but I think the world is used to hearing this, like, I'm going to go and build $1 billion company. And, especially me, I was a bit like, we will get there, but first we have to do this. And I was like, I should have just probably gone and said, we're going to build $1 billion company. But I've not changed, actually. I've, stayed true, and I've just attracted investors who see that. And I think it's just about being confident, back yourself. And I also think the other thing is, which I think, we need to be better at in general as a society, is accepting failure. I think I take a lot of inspiration. I speak to a lot of founders in San Francisco and etc. And they're so open to failing, and it's not seen bad. I think here, especially where I feel like I come from, there's failure seen as a bad thing, and that stops a lot of people taking risks. For me, when I started Hived, I knew, a strong possibility, because if you look at how many startups actually become successful, a strong possibility is failure. But I accepted that, and I was going to be happy with that. But you learn so much along the journey, and by failing, it's really not a bad thing. If you'd learn so much along the way. So I think just normalizing failure to allowing people to take more risk would be a great thing.
In the Bay Area, it's like a badge of honor to have failed.
Yeah, 100%.
No investor, certainly that I know of, would look down upon an entrepreneur trying to raise a new round or something because their previous companies didn't work. They'd just look down upon somebody that never gave it a go in the first place. In the UK, I think we have a different approach. We see failure as, this person's got a bad track record, let's skip this person. Does that make sense?
Definitely. And I think that's what when I speak to young founders and people who want to start companies, first I always tell them actually how hard it is, because I think, like we spoke about at the start, there's a lot of glamorization in building your own company. It's like, do you really know what you're going to get yourself into? Because if someone told me really, what I was getting myself into at the start, I still would have done it. And then secondly is just don't be afraid to fail. Like, don't be afraid. You learn the most when you fail. And that's super important to know and accept. And you probably will fail at some point of the journey. We've done Hive for a few years. Of course, we've made mistakes along the way, but when we make mistakes, that's the biggest learning curves is what we make then. So I think those two things is just, know what you're getting yourself into, and then just being okay with failing and taking risks.
And most people aren't, because when you fail, you basically have two choices. You can go, that didn't work, I'm going to give up, which is like what 90% plus of people do. The ones that end up being, successful in the eyes of society are the ones that go, okay, that didn't work, here's a reason why, let's go again, let's change, let's pivot, let's adapt. Why do you think it's only a small percentage of people that think that way? Are entrepreneurs born? Are they made? Is that something that you've ever thought about?
I don't know. I think it's really funny because I've always had the spark of entrepreneurship from as long as I can remember. From early memories, I always remembered being inspired. I mean, growing up in the UK, I watched The Apprentice at like 7, 8 years old, right? Just that was the stuff that excited me. That was the stuff that excited me the most. And I grew up with a family of businesses around me. My dad had a small business, my uncles had a business, and not startups or anything, but dinner table discussions for me revolved around that. So for me, that I knew gave me more excitement than, doing an essay or things like that, helping strategize with my dad about, we should do this, Dad, or, with my uncles and stuff like that. So I felt like I was, born, but also nurtured around me, right? It helped with that. Had I been in a different family environment where, all my family were in traditional jobs, maybe that would be slightly different. And look at my co-founder, Matthias, he comes from a family business background. His mum started a family business. So maybe it's a combination of two, is how you're brought up with that around you. And, when it's a family business, you're involved a lot more because that is your livelihood. So I think there's a combination of, you're born with it, but environment and what you expose yourself to as well growing up. And just, I think as you get older, and I graduated from university and got a job offer at a consulting firm, and, my dad was a bit annoyed at me when I declined it, but I was like, no, I want to start my own company. And I still had that, risk-taking within me, even though my dad was like, even though he had his own business, he was like, no, don't do it.
Probably not annoyed anymore, I mean.
But, in that period he was. And I look back and I'm like, why was you started your own business, but
I did 5 years of a big corporate beforehand though. So, and I think one thing for me was I didn't perhaps have those dinner table conversations growing up. And a lot of people don't have they have to create the entrepreneurial circle
Yeah.
around them, right? And even if your family weren't creating startups and raising cash, completely different to a small family business, right? What would you say to people that they don't have anyone around them that wants to learn about business? For me, I read a shit ton of books, and I started a podcast 3 years ago whilst I was an employee to start meeting great people to inspire me, because you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time
100%.
with, right? So what would you say about network and
Yeah, I think it's super important. Right? Business and startups are completely different. And the dynamics of a startup are completely different to a business. And I only actually learned that dynamic when I was around 20 years old, when I took a trip to San Francisco, and I was like, whoa, okay, all these big tech companies, this is what it means to get product market fit, grows quickly. I just been exposed to that. So I went through my own learning curve of like the startup side of the world. And for me, it was just, we're living in a time where there's so much content out there. Luckily, Europe is getting a bit more mature now in the startup ecosystem as well. I mean, Silicon Valley, San Francisco, it's very mature, but here now it's getting better. People are talking about it. People are seeing people. So I think reading books. There are so many books out there, and I still read constantly because depending on what stage of my journey I'm at, I'll reread the same books.
Yes,
it's I read that 2 years ago, but now it's more important for me.
Yeah.
Reading books, listening to podcasts, and also surrounding yourself with those people that you want to be surrounded by. I've got a lot of friends who are founders, who are investors, and that's really helpful and inspiring for me as well.
So you mentioned there around learning from books, from people, from podcasts. Are there any particular books, podcast recommendations that you'd give, I guess, specifically to entrepreneurs, startup founders, and that sort of thing?
The first book to read, everything is great, especially when you're in that scrappy stage, and it's probably very cliche to say this, but 0 to 1. That's an absolutely incrable book at the start.
And a small book as well.
Yeah, tiny.
I've read it 10 times because you can read it in one sitting. Yeah.
But the other books, I think The Hard Things, about the hard things, Good to Great.
Horowitz,
Good to Great is a fantastic book.
Collins,
Grit also is a great book. Those type of books.
We share a library.
I've got a whole stack of it. But then, so that's on that side, and then the podcast side. I mean, there's so much out there. It's also, you've got to be careful about what you consume at what time, because you can listen to the wrong content as well, where you see a founder who's like exited and you're like, that's so far away from my journey. And as aspiring as they are, and I definitely listen to loads of them, Harry Stebbins podcast, Diary of a CEO, typical.
Harry Stebbins been on mine.
So all those are like amazing when you listen to founders. But then I also try to surround myself with founders who maybe are like a year or two away from me.
Sure. Yeah.
Because if I'm listening, to the Airbnb story, who's like, IPO'd, I'm like, it's so far away and not really relatable to me. But then if I speak to a founder who's, a head office team of like 150, scaling really rapidly, and I'm like, that is very relatable to me.
More valuable, because if they're 1 or 2 steps ahead, they can show you how to get to where they are, right? But listening to someone like Brian with Airbnb, these are billion-dollar unicorns.
But it's important to have them listen to all.
Absolutely. But
because the Brian,
don't just listen to that.
The Brians, and that gives you like the vision of like, yes, we can also build a billion-dollar company. They did it, we can do it, and that's really important to always keep that vision and that big vision. But then also combining with a lot of relatable stuff around as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, one thing that I think you might correct me if you feel differently, but where you seem to get your drive from is the whole sports athletic side when you were growing up, right? So you were captain of Manchester City's under-17s.
So from like 11 to
Okay.
So
you were in leadership from a very young age, right? What was that like, kind of having to train, to motivate, to inspire, as a teenager, as a kid, really? And what lessons did you learn from the world of sports that you can apply to business?
Yeah, I think sport and business has a really good correlation. I actually have a coach who is ex-director of medical sciences at Everton Football Club.
Okay.
And so I think there's a lot of correlation to it, and he's really good at, because I've been a sports athlete before getting into my high performance. I think founders should be treated in the same way as high performance, where basically high performance athletes, and I think that's really important to acknowledge and also to treat ourselves like that. You go from, a founder of, shipping apartments from your flat, and now all of a sudden you have £15 million and a massive team, but then you don't have the support network around you, the good eating habits, habits, the good sleeping, the things like that athletes do, and this relentless journey it's an ultra marathon. So there's a lot of correlations you can take from sport to a founder, and I think sport is just about the insane self-discipline. From a very young age, I had to be conscious about, what I was eating, and, is this healthy? Is this good for me? Sleep was always really important. And also,
got the ring.
The Oura ring.
Yeah.
But also just having that drive on the pitch when it's not going your way on that day, to have that motivation internally to give that to everyone else across the team. If you're a captain and you're losing 1-0 and your head's down, what does that say for the motivation of the team? And I take that, my journey right now, if there's something not going our way, I have to be that leader that, can give that positivity across the team. Because if I start putting my head down, how do I expect everyone else's heads to lift up? So there's a lot of similarities between that journey and, I guess, this journey. And I think the other thing that gives me drive is just because, let's be honest, I don't really see many brown female founders.
Sure.
And I kind of want to change that a little bit. Yeah. And I want to, that kind of gives me a bit of a kick and a bit of a drive, we can do it as well, right? And I do more things like this because I realized, I never did, but then I realized there could be someone listening to this it's inspiring to them, because they actually, when I talk about relatability before, they actually, I might look like them or might come from similar backgrounds from them. So it's much more relatable rather than, listen to a podcast of someone else. I think those two things give me strong drive. It's like that captain, football, sport, ultra competitiveness that anything. I'm really bad at table tennis, but if I get on the table tennis in the office, I go into that match thinking I'm going to win. And every time, probably I don't, but every time I go, I still think I'm going to win. Just because of that ultra competitiveness in me. And I think that's given me a huge drive. And then also just being, a female brown founder and trying to hopefully, pave the way for many more.
Thinking you're going to win. It's the best mindset to have, because even if you are shit at something, there's nothing wrong with thinking that you're the best.
That you have to win.
I love affirmations, and I love repeating sayings to myself which get me going and motivated. And I'm a winner. I'm going to win. It's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, I mean, on my bike when I was delivering parcels myself, I had to think, we're going to build $1 billion company here, right? And I had to keep saying that. And when I get on the table tennis, even though it's probably my worst sport because I'm not very technical, I still go, yes, I'm going to win. And that's the motivation I try to take into life and to everything.
You mentioned around coaches a second ago. So you had coaches for the body. Have you worked with coaches for high performance, for the mind, and that sort of thing?
Well, my coach, Danny Donoshi, he is that for the Hive, getting that high performance of the mind, and figuring out what makes you tick. And is it the sleep? Is it the food? Is it the diet? Really trying to go deeper into those deeper layers. And I think that's been super amazing for me. To get that clarity of thought is really important, and also to do it away from the typical startup business coach. And that's why I've tried a few, and for me the sports thing really works with me. I'm not saying that might work for everyone, but and it's all about mindset, getting into the right mindset, and are you treating yourself right, are the foundations right, everything. And that's really, really important and I highly recommend it to anyone. And I wish I did it earlier, to be honest.
Yeah, me too. I worked with some great coaches and also some pretty terrible ones, right? There's a lot of
you just got to find what works for you. You just got to find what works for you. I think there's lots of different coaches out there for lots of different types of people. You've got to find what makes you tick.
Yeah. Okay. Let's end on the note for that young female brown wannabe founder that's listening or watching to this right now, right? And they might be, 5, 10, 15 steps behind of where you are today. But there was a time when you were in Manchester in that same position.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay? You probably didn't have anybody that you could have looked at. There are, successful Anne Bowden or, Whitney from Bumble, and, I think she's just announced she's stepping down. But there's some great stories, but they are the minority, they're not the majority. And there's a white people, obviously, as well. So you didn't have an inspiration from that perspective, but now, hopefully, you can be that inspiration for somebody. So I guess what, specifically for your demographic, what would you say?
I think just, like I said at the start, is just, why not? Why can't you do it? Right? It's just you have to get over that mental block initially, and it goes back to I always tell myself, I can do this, I can win. And I think just having that mentality and saying to yourself, I can also do this. I think just starting first by believing you can do it is so powerful, and I think just before you even start, if you've already told yourself you can't do it, there's no chance.
Yeah.
So, the first thing is mindset, like having that powerful mindset to think, actually I can do it. Definitely, that's also me. This career path is also for people like me. And just having that mindset, and mindset is everything. I think framing mindset is super important, and I think that's the key thing that's taking Hive this so far and brought my confidence higher, is just having the right mindset along the way.
And mindset is so fragile. Like if you've got to stand guard at the doors of your mind and only let the right information enter. Because if you let the wrong idea going into your mind, I've experienced this firsthand many times, and you don't think about it, and then it starts festering and you start repeating it over and over to yourself. Your thoughts become your actions, and your actions become your habits, and your habits become your future, basically. So it all starts with the information that's coming into your mind and which information you're deciding to go, I want that, no, I don't want that. So mindset is everything.
Yeah. Like 100%. I think you have to be very selective of what you consume as well, because that can shape your mindset in a negative way. I've become very, very conscious of who I spend my time with, what content I'm listening to, everything, because it has a subconscious effect on you which you don't even realize. And you've got to just be very conscious about, like I said, who your friends are, where you're spending your time, what content you're consuming, everything, and making sure you're also having that downtime as well, and and also diverse of thought. I think that's super important. Having friends of different cultures and environments, I think that's also something that I'm so happy that I've been fortunate to have my entire life. My friends have come from everywhere across the world, different religions, different backgrounds, and I think that's always so important to have that diverse of thought, and hopefully we can continue to have that at Hived as we scale.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for doing this.
Perfect. Thank you for having me.
People want to learn more about you, about Hive, there'll be a link below you right now. What are they clicking on? What is it?
Whether I like to keep my Instagram quite private, so just my LinkedIn. Unfortunately, I'm a bit boring.
Yeah, my Instagram is pretty boring as well, but you should follow me. That's okay.
I have my niece and my nephew on Instagram, so it's very private.
Mine's just pictures of my baby, but I don't know. There's no privacy in 2023, so who knows? All right, thank you for watching.
Hey, thanks for watching this podcast. Make sure that you like, subscribe, follow, comment, etc., and I'll see you in the next episode.